Mic check,
Going on?
mic check. You
Yeah, I hear
ready?
you loud and clear, brother. What's going on? We in the place to be. Isn't that what you normally tell us?
Yeah, yeah. Another day, another way. Let's get this
All right.
thing. Let's get this thing right. The brother, I was whispering to myself earlier. You know what? I'm Mike Seville. Shouts out to everybody. You see the name, Michael Seville, your real estate guide here in Palm Beach County. Appreciate you all for checking in the community beacon. I was going to jump right into it. Of course, on the other side of the screen, we got my brother, Joe Simmons, the incomparable Joe Simmons of the Tenacity Foundation.
Ah, yes. He got it. He got it. I do the same thing for you, but I don't have that. So,
Sh-
uh,
Shouts
God,
out, we here, and I was whispering to myself. The brother was getting ready. I was like, man, I'm fired up. And he's like, so you fired up? Is that what you said, brother? I said, oh, he can hear me. I was talking to myself. And I do it often. Like I'm always just having these conversations with myself about how I'm feeling, where I'm going. You know, make sure I'm in alignment. Make sure that I'm holding myself accountable. If you all are paying attention to the title, we're talking about bringing this vision to reality. We're bringing it on home. How about that? We're bringing it on home with alignment and accountability. And, you know, brother, right before we got on here, you said something, and, you know, I'm thinking on it now. It was, you know, you said it sounds like we talked about this already. We talked about this again, you know, so on and so forth. And I just want people to know, like, this stuff is not a mystery. Like, you know, probably depending on what you're doing, there's different nuances, there's intricacies, there's different language, but more so a lot of this stuff is there, it's really no mystery. It's quite simple. It's so simple that you'll skip over it. Right? It's so simple that we forget to do it. It's so basic that when you come to and you stop imagining what this thing is like, right? And you start observing things for what they are, you start to say, how did I miss that? And you'll often do that, you know, and your mentor, that's why you know, we'll get into that as well. That's why the people around you, it's so important to have people around you that can kind of point these things out, you know, because they're so simple, but you know, maybe you got your head down and you're just in it. You know, I had my cousin call me yesterday. And he was like, oh, he left me a message, and I called him back. He was like, man, I knew you were working. He said, because I know when you working, you just get right into it. I say, yeah, I do. But then every now and then I got to stop doing it. I go take the dog for a walk, and I'll say, I can't believe I missed that. Right. And you come back and you kind of start putting things together. So here we are with this alignment and this accountability. Brother, I don't, where do you want to start?
I tell you what, I like what you just said already. You know, just the whole thing about sometimes you get your head is down and you're in it. You're like in the midst of it, as they say in the glade, you're in the muck, and it's just like, yo, you miss simple steps. It's simply easy to miss simple steps. And I think that is, part of the power of alignment. Um, I was talking with somebody recently. I don't really remember who exactly it was. It may come to me while I'm talking, but I was talking with somebody. Actually, I put out a post. It's on my IG. It's on in the WhatsApp group, the gathering. It's in there, and it just talks about challenges and opportunities. And one of the things that I was mentioning to the people was that one of the lessons that I learned while going through a specific type of challenge that I was facing, that my family was facing, was that you got to get to the point where what you're doing is so ingrained inside of you that it's like driving home from work when you've been working at the same place for multiple years and you start thinking about something and your thought takes you somewhere and you start solving the world's problems in your mind. And before you know it, you're home. And it's because you're on autopilot. And so it's like when you hit that alignment, sometimes things just go into autopilot. because you know exactly what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and that alignment just keeps you moving straight down the pathway. You're able to expand your vision during the course of that. But even when that happens, sometimes during the expansion of the vision, you have to take a step back. And like you said, like go walk the dog, go for, and just think about what just happened, what's going on, the nuances that came into your mindset. And you may at that point in time pivot because you realize, hey, listen, my alignment, it was yesterday heading straight down this pathway, taking me from my job to my home. But I just realized that to give me the capacity to go above and beyond where I was, I need to make a stop right here. It's a milestone, it's a cornerstone stop. That's going to change everything for
Mm.
me. Do that when I take that time to readjust and make sure that I truly am aligned with my goal and my vision, or that maybe my goal and my vision has caused my life to realign, and I do that, oh baby, now we're making new waves. And so I just thought about that, man. I like that. Simple steps, right? Simple steps.
I like what you just spoke about in regards to these pivotal points that we can kind of go back to in the life. And I would advise anyone, and I because I saw someone do it. Shouts out to the Saint and the Sinner. He's on YouTube, and I did pick up. Yeah, I mean, probably one of the most intelligent and articulate people that I've ever encountered. And he has his way of thinking about things, but not to delve too much into the guy, but it's something that he did. He wrote a book and it was called The Black Box. Young guy, he's like 30 some years old. He wrote a book called The Black Box. And what he ended up doing was going back, used his history. And he went to like certain points in his life that he deemed to be pivotal in his life. Like at this point in time, and don't get me wrong, everything becomes somewhat pivotal, but not to nitpick on it. Like he decided like these points were points that changed in his mind, changed the trajectory or put him in alignment, or he noticed these points were things that he were in align with, because we make decisions all day long, right? Like the brother said, sometimes we just an autopilot on making decisions. However, there's certain times when we make these decisions that when we look back, we're like, that was necessary. So this part was necessary, and why was it necessary? Because it's putting me in alignment in what wherever it is that I want to go, where I need to be. Like here's the thing, I don't want to go down this path, but I'm here already. So let me lay down this foundation. Is that all things, right? Like all things are for the good. So now I've started saying, people like, oh, well, this bad thing happened, this negative happened. And I say, it's not negative, it's not bad. It was necessary, because it was necessary for me to get to this point. So maybe looking back on it, I'd be like, okay, well, Mike, you didn't make a righteous decision at that point in time. However, now that the fact that I'm recognizing it and I have the awareness, it's like, okay, so that is a pivotal point, because now I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again. You know what I mean? Or it's teaching me something, or now I can use this to teach someone else something. So I think it's important for us to recognize like these little pivotal points. I love that. Although we are making choices, you mentioned something else that I love, and it's the being, becoming, and is in the being. Right. Like, and this is the journey we're on. The brother talked about his journey in regards to his business a second ago before we got online. Of course, a lot of this stuff happens. Maybe when we get on, we should just start immediately. Right. And then we can go back and edit the stuff. But the brother was talking about some processes that he's learning, or how he's identifying his process, how he's going down the journey. So it's like but in this entire thing, he's becoming something. So everything else doesn't make a difference as far as I'm concerned. Like the money, I think the money is just a part of the becoming, and really, you don't even get caught up with it. It's a resource. This is not the most important thing. It does help you to see metrics. You know what I mean? Like you're like, okay, well, last year I did this, I made zero, right? That's a tangible thing. That's something, that's a metric that you could put your hands on. Cause I can look at my bank account on February 7th, 2024 and say, well, I was doing this and this happened. And now here we're in 2025. I look at my bank account, I'm like, oh, well, I got this because I started doing this. But when you look back, you should be like, so what was I doing? What was I being in order for this to happen, for these things to change? So I don't want you to say that money doesn't mean anything, because a lot of people are like, well, Mike says money doesn't mean anything. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying that it's a tangible, it's a metric that you use, but the more important thing is the becoming. Because if all this was taken away from you, which it can, it happens all the time. You ever heard of bankruptcy? You ever heard of foreclosure, where someone, this real estate guy foreclosed on all his homes? Happened a lot, 2008 to 2011. Go and check it out. And then all of a sudden you look back at this guy now, he's 2020 and he's already gotten this again. And he's like, well, and I learned from this point. But those metrics kind of show you what to look out for, so on and so forth. So it's very important. Some of you may not necessarily, some of you may call it, what is it? KIPs, key something something. It's a KIP. so, so you there, brother? You on mute. So, a lot of the things the brother says, and we say it all the time, and we kind of, it almost sounds like we're repeating, like these brothers are saying the same thing. It's because the patterns are there, and we're just allowing people to become aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you talking about? Like key performance
Key
indicators?
performance indicators, KPIs. Yeah, there you go, brother.
Yeah, man. Um, I like that, man. I like becoming and being. B and B. Bad. BAB. Right? Bad. Or bad. I think that's important. I think jumping
Uh oh.
into just alignment, right?
Is it is it me, brother? You're frozen.
Oh
You're back.
man.
You're back now. You're back now. I hear
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
we good. All right, perfect. Thank you for pointing that out. But it's like when you start thinking about that alignment, man, you started hitting on something that really that I was thinking about. I was thinking about it. Being in alignment means just ensuring that your actions, your mindset, and your previous long-term goals all line up. But then when you started talking about becoming and being, I think that is the process, right? Like that is the process of alignment. And it comes down to, I think we talked about this last week. One of my sayings is, wherever I am, I check myself. And it's just like, you have to do a personal audit, do an audit of your life, an audit of your business, an audit of your relationships, right? You have to do an audit of the things that matter to you. What gets measured gets improved.
Hmm.
Mike, you said that so many times, and this may be one of those cliche terms, but the thing about it is, it's like, it's true. If you start looking into deeper into something, you tend to find out what works and what doesn't work. And that's the point where you can make those pivots. You can make those adjustments. You can figure out how to make things work out a little bit better. I think that alignment is crucial to success. And I don't mean alignment in the sense of, the world's talking about be aligned, because that's just the world talking. But I feel like it's more about knowing yourself, who you are, what you are driving to do and or become, and then making the appropriate decisions and using the appropriate mindset to get where it is you desire to be. And using the tools that you have, but not just using the tools that you have, but taking the time to learn more about other tools that you may be able to use. Many times, especially as men, I think that we use island tools. You know, what is that movie based off the true story with Tom Hanks, and he creates a friend out of the ball and names him Wilson after the FedEx airplane um, crashes and he ends up landing on an island all by himself. Can't think of the name of that movie, but maybe somebody will think of it, put it in the chat or something like that. The whole point is that when he's on the island, you got me now?
Yeah, I think I disappeared as well. Was it me? Hello, hello. I hear you. I see the brother shaking his head.
How about now?
I hear you now.
All right. All right. Sorry
I
about
don't
that,
know what
y'all.
that was about.
Technical difficulties, right?
Yeah.
Just to finish my thought, it's like on that island, he uses archaic um, tools to do what he wants to do. And I feel like a lot of times as men, as brothers, we are using that. That's exactly what we're using, whatever tool that we have used every time for everything else to do whatever it is that we're doing. I feel like in this day and age, I think that there is um, more of a union amongst brethren than there was, maybe a few years back, maybe 5 years back or 10 years back. Nothing like the days of the civil rights movement, but definitely there is some progress in that direction. I'm seeing more groups for men that are popping up and stuff like that. And it's just these things are there to help us be like, hey, listen, there are absolutely other tools to get done what you're attempting to get done. Let
I'm here. I don't know if the brother can hear me. This is interesting today. Okay, so I guess the brother's going to come back on, and what he's saying is resonating. A lot of it's interesting. So there, let's talk about what he mentioned. He mentioned that nowadays he's starting to see brothers get together more often, specifically in regards to he has a group called the Gathering, and then he kind of spoke about the 50s and the 60s, probably early 70s, where there was the civil rights movements where people where men specifically were getting together. So we're saying that there is a portion of time that we're kind of recalling where maybe a 15 to 20-year period when men were not getting together, or at least weren't getting together and being productive. And I think as men, something that's probably like to be able to create and to be productive is probably one of the most important things that we need to happen. Now, when we get away and we start doing these things on our own, like we mentioned earlier, we start to miss a lot of these different things. So we may not be as efficient, as productive as possible because we're not going back to the brother saying, hey, brother, I did this. What do you think about this? Or this is what's going on in my relationship. Do you see any holes that I'm having? Because once we put our head down there, sometimes we compartmentalize things often. So if it's about work, it's just about work. And maybe we're thinking like we need to get this thing done. Next thing you know, you done went 6 to 8 months without talking to your spouse, without hanging with your kids, without doing any family oriented thing. And then unfortunately, you kind of get brought back. Brother, go ahead. I don't know what's going on because I think my internet is also on the fritz as well.
Yeah, man, I don't know either. So, but Hey, listen, I apologize. Man, but that's it though. You picked up right where I was leaving off because I think that that's part of the process of being aligned, right? You don't know that it's like a car, man. You know, when you first drive a car and you've never driven a car before, and that thing starts pulling to the left or pulling to the right, you don't know anything unless somebody taught you that that's what it is. You have no idea what that is. But then you get an experienced driver to get in, and they're like, "Hey, listen, just let go of the wheel for a second or two." And you see that car start going off the road. They're like, "All right, take it back." They're like, "Well, what do you think it is? What's wrong with my vehicle?" It's like you need an alignment. It's
Oh.
it's so simple. It's so simple to somebody who knows. And so, like, there's so many things that we don't understand. It's difficult to be in alignment. But once we are, it makes it so simple. But we have to value check ourselves. We have to have clear goals, so that we know how to double check it. Like if you don't know what you're double checking, it becomes a very difficult thing to do to be able to see if you're going in the right direction. Like if you have no idea where you're going, it's hard to figure out if you're going in the right direction. When you do know where you're going and you look at a map, it's easy to say, yo, we shouldn't have taken that right. We shouldn't have got off on that exit. You know what? We should have been going north instead of west. We should have been going east instead of south. It's easy. Steve Jobs once said it was known for saying no distractions and aligning everything Apple did with its core mission. So, like for him, it was like no distractions, simply align everything to the core mission of Apple and look at the success that he brought about. Look at the success that continued on, the legacy that he developed by sticking with something that was so clear and so simple. We develop the mission. Whatever we do supports the mission. Very clear, very easy to follow, and very easy to fall back on. When we want to have good alignment, that's what we've got to do. We've got to define it. I think we talked about this before, but Simon Sinek wrote the book, Start with Why. We got to define why we are doing what we're doing, why there's a value to us, what we're attempting to accomplish, what's the mission, what's the goal, and then we need to do audits along the way. And this is how we can keep our alignment in check because we have a clear pathway, clear direction, and we're auditing constantly or frequently to make sure that we're going in the right direction. But the caveat to this is what Mike was talking about. When it comes down to business, I think that a lot of people, and I've been guilty of it, in my time in business, where what we are doing is so important that we believe that everybody that is with us as a family man, everybody is with us, wife, children, friends, loved ones, everybody is with us. But if we're not actually, if their idea and their value is not incorporated into the vision, then what can happen is a misalignment with family, friends, loved ones can occur because it wasn't truly a part of the business plan. So when you're doing these plans, when you got these visions, when you got this dream, make sure that you encompass everything that you love and care about. Like if you want to get to the top of the mountain, visualize being at the top of the mountain with your son. Don't visualize getting to the top of the mountain and your kid's not there, because when you get to the top of the mountain, your kid may not be there. You left him 50 miles ago. And he's like, I don't even know who that Negro is.
So here's the thing, and I want to be clear on where I stand with that as well. Everything the brother says essentially is correct. The why, which essentially is your purpose. What's the purpose, right? The why, the purpose. You can put those two things together. And the communication, this is where we get left off. The communication between your child, however that looks, maybe you communicating to a 3-year-old, like me, like, listen, Paul, Go sit down there for a while and I'll be with you in a little bit, and we spoke about that and giving these timelines and give me 30, 45 minutes, et cetera, because I want people to know that I'm considering them throughout this entire time. That I think that's where it gets and because I want us to make sure that we're accountable for that. And I think I told a young lady this once. Like she asked me like, what's a relationship? What happens with a relationship? I said a relationship is really more so about the consideration that you show for somebody else. Because if you don't really consider someone, then there's really no relationship to be had. We're not talking about
Oh
anything, right?
man.
So the
Woo.
more that I can consider you, forget the title. The title sounds good for you to tell someone else such and such, so on and so forth. But I can give you a title and not consider you. It doesn't make any difference. Same thing with your children. Like, how do I consider these people? Now, here's the brother going. Now, here's the thing. Here's where we start to get disconnected. You know what I mean? This is so you want to make sure that we have these conversations. This is a mature conversation. So where the disconnection can occur is that my purpose is for me is going to be God given. So unfortunately, I'm not going to hell for anybody. I spoke about this a couple weeks ago. The devil is not going to get a 2-for-1. So I'm sharing with you my purpose and I'm considering with you my purpose. But let's make no mistake about it. This is the purpose. And now if there's correction that needs to be had, I'm going to have it. However, I'm going to go talk to, for the brothers, I'm going to go talk to Joel about it. Because, with our partners, they can get caught up in what this is supposed to look like in the world. Our relationship in the world, what that looks like. And that's not the case. So feelings get involved. Oh, you missed Valentine's Day, sweetheart. Valentine's Day got nothing to do with my purpose. You know what I mean? I'm going to consider you because I know the type of world that we live in. However, my purpose is my purpose. So on Valentine's Day, I'm supposed to be doing something in my purpose. I'm going to be doing it in my purpose because Valentine's Day means nothing to me according to my purpose. It's not even, I don't even want to get into it. It's not a righteous, but Valentine's right around the corner, ladies. I hope you all enjoy it.
7 days, y'all.
It's
7 days.
it's in 7 days, but it's not important. I don't even know what it like. We could go how it came about, whatever. I don't want to harp on Valentine's Day. I don't want to make Valentine's Day the devil. What I want to say is that the purpose is the purpose. So the fact that I'm considering you about that and considering how you feel, that is about the purpose. But the purpose is going to happen, right? Still have to be submissive and obedient to whatever the call, submissive and obedient to the calling. That's the word. I have to be submissive and obedient to this purpose, which is beyond money, which is beyond material things. We're just talking about being righteous, right? So that's that. I think the conversation that we're having now, essentially, because we can talk about this topic for hours, but we're starting off with this initially. You need to be, and I'm glad we started off this way because accountability is on there. You need to be self-accountable. You need to check your first. You need to be self-accountable. Because there's going to be times when you can't call somebody. Joel is sleeping. I don't need to bother him at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's not an emergency, but I need to be accountable for myself or whatever it is. We didn't have this conversation prior. So I need to look within myself and be accountable to myself first. That's who I'm accountable to first, right? Spiritually you're accountable, but first I have to get this thing right. So I think that's important for us to have that conversation, and then we can kind of delve into the looking for people to help us with accountability. Unless you have anything else to talk about on that point, brother.
Nah, man, I love this piece about accountability and that consideration too. Because I agree with it. I agree with that. I agree with what you said. And I know that, some people may say, well, hold on, man. This man, he's talking about not supporting such and such and such and such. And listen, I think that what it really comes down to is the consideration piece, right? My purpose, your purpose, our purpose. I think that that's what it comes down to. Amos 2:2:2:3. How can two walk together except they agree? That type of stuff. And it's like These are the conversations when you're dealing with other people that you need to go in and have these conversations. It's like it needs to happen. Oh my gosh, it needs to happen sooner than later, and it's across the board. So if you're talking about you got a little lady friend and you want to talk about some different things, we talked about this before. Be aware of who you are. You should examine yourself before you get there. Do the groundwork. Do the groundwork. Be aware of who you are. Be accountable to who you are. If you say you are, what you are should show up to the table every single time. With the exception of being tired or sleepy every so often, whatever that is. But the exceptions should never outweigh the accountability, right? It should never be that I show up in the exception style of life so often that somebody else views the exception as me being accountable to who I am when I'm telling you I'm something else. No, it's like every day I say, you should be on time, you should be on time, you should be on time. But every day I show up late, late to earth, late is, right? Those two things don't align. So I agree with you, Mike. It's like we need to check ourselves. There's a song you used to say you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. You know? There it is, right? And like that's like what needs to happen. So check yourself. Now, when it comes down to this consideration, consider this. If you know who you are, then before you enter into some deeper relationship that's going to cost you emotions, right? Emotions, emotional baggage, mental baggage, physical baggage, financial baggage, that's going to cause you something, spiritual baggage, something that's going to cause you you're going to have to take on some luggage that was not initially yours. Now, don't get me wrong, you may be willing to share it, but you're taking it on and it wasn't yours. Before you do that, you need to go ahead and explain who you are so that there can be consideration on both sides. For instance, you enter into an agreement to start a business with somebody, right? Everybody's bringing X amount of dollars to the table, you know, and we think that it's just about the dollars. It's all about the finance. So as long as everybody's got their 50K, they bring it to the table, you go ahead and purchase whatever it is and you start the business. Now, what happens when somebody has some debt that they're not disclosing? What happens when that debt begins to catch up with them? What happens when they no longer can uphold their part of the bargain and you get left with their bag? And it's all because we did not take into consideration to do the details. We didn't do the details. We didn't get into the thick of it. We didn't get into the muck. We didn't go that far down that road. And we also didn't explain what we would do if these things would come about. Like, so having that type of mindset makes it so much easier to be in alignment with others by being in alignment with yourself, by knowing who you are, what you are, where you desire to be, because it's a lot easier to cut away, break away when we've done that. It doesn't mean that these things won't happen and you won't have to deal with it when it comes up. You may have to deal with it. Maybe somebody lied to you, but now you know where they stand and you know where you stand. And it's a lot easier to break away from that thing, at least from your own standpoint, because you feel like, hey, man, I put my line in the sand. I actually did that. I did that. You crossed over it. So now it's my choice on whether or not we can continue to move forward. But it is my choice because I was very clear about who I am, what I'm about, where I am heading. And you had the opportunity, I gave you the opportunity to accept me as me. Now, getting back to the whole Valentine's Day thing, hey, I don't do Valentine's Day. If that's what you're looking for the wrong one. It's that simple. It's that simple. And then you just move on. The business, hey, I don't have debt. If you bring in debt, then we can't do this. Go clear yourself of debt and we can reconsider. It's that simple. But many times, uh, we as people and maybe as men, you know, we're willing to accept somebody else's neglect, their debt, and their negativity because we think that them being with us will help us get to where we desire to be. And that is a form of using somebody else, right, in itself. We are wrong when we do that. You are wrong when you do that. So let's get back to it. Be accountable. Break your stuff down into actionable steps and know what they are so that when you get out there and you start talking with people, you know what's going on.
The brother's talking about do your due diligence.
There it is.
Do your do your do your due diligence. And I'm over here laughing and smiling because the brother's so nice, and because it's hard to accept some of these things that he's saying if you really take it to the core. I don't blame nothing but men. Because it's just a part of manhood is just accountability. And you don't know how many times I've had conversations with brothers and I said, and I'm talking a relationship sphere. They'll say, well, she said this about this person. You get involved with a young lady. She may have children or something. She said this about the dad, the father, and this. I say, you love this. You like this young lady? Yep. I want to be in this young lady's life. Yeah. You need to go talk to the guy. Well, he was in and out of jail. Go talk. Go have a conversation. It might save you a lot of trouble down the road. Same thing with business. You get into business with someone, you go and ask around. Hey, the brother he sound thorough. Trust but verify. Hey, Joe, I saw that you were friends with this person. Tell me a little bit about that. We were talking about business. Joe might say, well, I was in business with him. And brother, I'm going to tell you, do what you want. Do what you want, but X and O. I just want you to let you know. And I'm glad you came and asked me. This goes back to what we spoke about at the beginning. Going back and having those conversations, using those tools, getting into a place like the gathering. I'm going to tell you something that I've been blessed with and is having conversation with my father. It's a cheat code. Me and my father's conversations to me is a cheat code, regardless of whether we agree, whether we don't agree. And in his mind, he's still my father. So he's leading me. So I'm still his, little boy, in his mind.
Padawan.
I can't graduate to Jedi Master for nothing. It doesn't matter. And so we were having a conversation yesterday, and I'm joking with him. I said, I can already tell. I told him this. I'm telling him about himself. Shouts out to my dad, man, the incomparable Mike Seville. And I'm telling you all now, I'm about to put these things out. If you want to be around masculine energy and just have someone tell you what it is, go take a trip to Jamaica, and he'll be glad to have you. He will be glad to have you, and it's in a beautiful location. You're going to overlook the city. He's going to take you out to get some of the best food that you've ever eaten in your life. You're going to get the good sunshine. You're going to wake up in a comfortable place, so on and so forth. You're going to enjoy yourself. My father is a people person. You know what I mean? So, but getting to the point, I told him, was it yesterday? I had a conversation with him. And I told him, he says, so you're going to, Lord, forgive me. I'm not even going to mimic him. He said, you can't tell me about, he basically told me I can't tell him about where this comes from. Right. So he said, you can't tell me about where this comes from, like how I have this thought. And I told him, I said, Dad, I say, Pops, as I'm looking at this wall and this wall is real, I'm telling you I already know your answer. And he started laughing, and he doesn't know why I'm saying this to him, but I've already had this conversation with myself, and I understand. I say, you know what? This is a cheat code because I'm looking at myself in the future, 69 years old. I can see that. He, but beyond, he has the experiences and so on and so forth, but I can actually observe myself in this guy. So if I can observe myself in this guy and he's willing to have the conversation with me about life and his life in particular, and I can see the resemblance of it, the resemblance of his life, him being 69 years old telling the story, and me myself, like, where did I, how you say, like, where did I get that from? You got brothers who ain't seen their fathers and ever, really just reconnecting at this point over, 20, 30 years. And I'm like, oh, that's why I walked that. I didn't even know why I walked that way like that. I have these certain behaviors. It's genetic. You know what I mean? So as much as I can see that in him, and he's willing to share that experience with myself, and really I'm willing to go seek it and accept it as well. I'm like, man, so this is a cheat code. I'm really 69 in my 40-year-old body. You know what I mean? Like I'm really already having a chance to connect with these experiences, right? Like I'm connecting with that. So it's like this gives me another way of how to connect with myself. And now here's the beauty. Another beautiful part of it is that him being in my life is his ability to correct me. Whether or not he's right or wrong, I get something from the correction. Now you can't think of it that way. Sometimes I'm like, I was being facetious when I said that. I was just kind of being, he's like, yep, but you can't think of it that way. That's not how a man thinks. A man ain't going to think of it that way. And I'm like, but you're right. You know what I mean? So having that and having us coming together and the brothers getting together, that's the importance of the gathering. That's the importance of Community Beacon. When you come up on here and you talk about it, a brother saying, listen, you could go down that route, right? Like you can do it, but I'm going to give you some information. I've experienced some stuff. Right. So being able to have that thought process and brother, you tripping, you kind of going on, you need to check back in with yourself. This is the part of that accountability measure when we're coming from outside of ourselves is to actually have those things. And this is a part of having this strong support system. No man is an island. And unfortunately, we lived in the past 30, 40, 50 years, 1960, 1970. I don't want to get into it. We can, if you want to talk history, hit me up. We can have the conversations. I can tell you some of the pathology of how we got to where we are, but I'm just speaking on where we are. We decided at some point that we were going to either do it on our own or we just had to have a bunch of women around us who are telling us these things. And this is not to be, I'm not saying nothing wrong with you. It's nothing better than a lady full of wisdom, right? That can and is willing to expound that upon you. But there's something when you get around the brothers to have this logical conversation, and the brothers looking at it from a man's standpoint, because that's something that you can't get. A woman can help validate some of the things as far as men is concerned, but there's times when but she don't really want to hear all that stuff neither. Right? So there's times when you got to get around a brother and say, hey, brother, this thing is hurting me to the core. I don't know. And the brother said, and can tell you either I went through that or let's help guide you through this situation. Right? And then now you can take that upon yourself, kind of go back and check yourself. You need to establish a strong support system. That's in business. That's going to be in relationships. That's going to be a time of war. Like you want to have people around you that can give you some sound advice, and advice is based on sound principles and sound ideology.
That's it, man. That's dope. I love that about just touching back on that accountability and taking it there. I heard mentors, guidance, accountability partners, strong support system. I couldn't agree more. Just stepping off of that island, like I think I was talking about. I can't remember what that movie was, but I just always think about
Castaway.
Castaway. I always think about that movie, man. It's like You know, men don't be on that island because the honest truth about it is somebody else is going through it right now. They're not telling anybody about it. I've gotten phone calls first thing in the morning, last thing at night, and it's the same thing. Same thing. Sometimes we'll put out something on the gathering, and I'll get a phone call about it the next morning or a few minutes after. And it's very real. And people, and I also have brothers that'll come up to me. Say, hey man, I don't say anything on it, but I read every single thing that's stated there. And then I got some people that say, hey man, keep doing what you're doing because it's helping someone. They talking about themselves. Like I've been around long enough to know you're not talking about somebody else. It's not, there's no elephant in this room, you know? And it's just like, we need that. I need that. I need those type of people around me all the time. I need my Michael Seville, you know. I need him around me. I need my, Elder Ferguson, the pastor. I need these men that are around me, you know. I It's so important because there's growth amongst men. I need my Adrian Ellis. I need these men that are around me so that when there is something, or I can look to Mike and I can say, okay, I'm looking at how he's maneuvering through that, or my Beethoven, look how he's maneuvering through that, or my Lou, look at how he's maneuvering through that, or my John Gluck. I need all of those people around me because it's not always in what you directly say to me. Sometimes it's in what you indirectly say or what you do that I view, because there is a level of trust that has been developed, and that trust allows me to lower my guards down, low enough that I can actually receive some type of knowledge, education, or awareness to be able to level myself out and to make sure that I continue to go in a straight pattern. So I love that, man. I love that. Accountability, it needs to be consistent. Consistent, right? I think Napoleon Hill, he started talking about the mastermind group, right? And the think and grow rich model. And this is kind of like what we're talking about. This is what Mike and I have right here on this show. So it doesn't matter if nobody shows up. Him and I can sit here and we can talk about things and we can digest it and we can walk out of this environment better, because this is a point of focus, a point of reference. This is a cornerstone moment that we've created every single week that allows us to make that next right turn. And that's really what it all comes down to when we start talking about alignment and accountability, is how do I make the next right turn? One of the things that I would share with young men, is like, listen, everybody makes mistakes. Make the next right decision. It's that simple. And they're like, well, what if I make another mistake? It's like, everybody makes mistakes. Make the next right decision. And so you can play that like a record on repeat. And if you just think about it that way, because you may not know that you've made a mistake until you've actually done it. And you may not know what the next right decision is until you've made it. So don't get caught up and bound up in all of the minutiae. Just do your best to make the next decision the right one. And if it isn't, everybody makes mistakes. Do it again. Learn from what you went through. Make adjustments. Pivot. Right?
It's necessary. Like it's necessary. These quote unquote mistakes that you made, like, it's necessary. And when you start to look at it, it's like you shouldn't want it any other way. Like you made something, you did something, you learned from it, you get around your group, you have the conversation, and you move on, right? And you mentioned Beethoven. Beethoven said something recently, and I was like, yeah. And you know what was interesting? Chris and I said this years ago. They said don't have too many. He said you're allowed to have your days when you're not showing up as you always comparing yourself to before, like when you're kind of not at the height of your game, like you know what I mean, like you're not coming out dropping 30 points today, right? Today it might be a 15 to 20, but 20, but your environment, your purpose, your why needs you to drop these 30 points. You need to be consistent with the 30 points. So the thing is like, do not let these days happen back to back to back to back. Right? Like, okay, maybe it's one day, maybe it's 2 days, maybe it's 3 days. Here's now you're like, oh crap, it's been 15 days. I'm not telling you to harp on it or continue feeling sorry for yourself, because you're just going to continue going down that route. Now is the time for you to check yourself. Well, am I depressed? Am I eating correctly? Am I not getting enough sun? What is really bothering me? So I can put the focus and effort on whatever it is. Right? You use the time as a gauge as to what it is, because these things are bound to happen. However, 15, 20 days, I need to go talk to somebody. Because I can't do this by myself. Or maybe you can. But guess what? 3 months might go by. Like this is just tangible ways. This is just ways that this is how you check yourself. Hey man, I'm a thug through it. I'm a thug. I'm a faith through it for this day. Okay, yeah. Oh man, it's 2 days. Yeah, I'm allowing myself. I'm okay. 3 days. Oh, now your girl might be looking at you. Hey, what's going on with you? And she gonna nurture you for now, but that there is a time limit on, right? I'm not gonna tell you how long it's gonna be, but there is a time limit, because don't nobody want to be around someone that they're handling things better than, right? And so 3 days go around. At 7 to 10 days, I can't do this, man. I need to go talk to somebody. I need to have this conversation. Whether you need to pay for it, whether you need to put this thing together, make it easy on yourself. Start to recognize these people who you can have the conversation with, or who you need to pay, or whatever it is. Like, I need some information in my brain. Either I don't have it, I'm resisting it, but I need this information that's going to get me out of this quote unquote funk. It's been 10 days and I need to get to it. Right. Or if you start to see this happening every year at the same time, every March to February, February to March, something is going on. My weight is off. I'm not getting to the gym during this time. Like, what is going on? Now you need to get it out, because you cannot fix the problem with the same mind that created it. Ooh. That's Einstein quote. This is when you speak to someone like, listen, I can't fix this problem with the same mind I created. I got to get around somebody that's going to be able to give me this new information, or give me the information that's already had, but in a way that I can receive it. Right? Like, that's what this is about. I wanted to talk about the mentors. We talk about the mentors, or the coaches, or the peer advisors, or, people seeking this information. Well, how do you pick these people? I want to make sure we get this clear. I thought about this and I was like, well, it comes down to two things. It comes down to what you should be looking for is competence and integrity. So everything should be based on integrity. So if you get around someone who has integrity, it's easier for me. It's easier for me to say this. I don't care what the tone is like, personally, right? So thank God I grew up around men, right? So I don't care what I was in basketball. I played sports. That helped as well. I don't care what my coach's tone was. Maybe that was I learned it, whatever. I'm going to be like, as long as it was integrity. So my coach, he's vested in me, right? He's vested in me because he wants to win this game. He's vested in me getting better, or doing things better, or being more productive. So he's going to say, well, fake to the inside and go to the outside, whatever it is, that thing you're playing. But I don't care what his tone is like. So when I'm running off to the sideline, my coach could say whatever he got to say. He's yelling at the top of his, I don't know if you had these old school coaches. I don't know what the new school coach was like, but our coach used to yell at you, right? So we run it up, hey, Seville. So I don't really care what it looks like now, because it's like the integrity is what's most important to me, right? So the integrity of this person, because also what integrity is going to say is, hey, brother, I can't help you. but I possibly can know someone who can. I could point you in that right direction. That's where the integrity is going to come from. So that's how you look for these people that you want to keep you help with your support system. Integrity should be of the utmost importance. Number two is going to be is it is not really number two because it's all intersects. Is the competence of this person.
Hmm.
How do you judge someone's competence? The competence is going to come through someone who's. I love when someone says I don't know, but I'm willing to go find out. Because that's going to show the integrity and the competence. Or someone who says, "Listen, I can't help you. That's not in my wheelhouse, or I don't have it's not the time, so to speak. But I can point you in the right." And so from that point on, I'm going to take that information. I'm going to take the competence. I'm going to look at the integrity. I'm going to say, these are the people I need to have around. Whether I got to, get it by hook, crook, or whatever the saying is. I got to pay for it. I got to provide some type of value, show some type of leverage, whatever it is. I want access to those kind of people who are competent and people who have integrity.
I love it, man. I love it. I wrote that down. I like that. I like those 2 points right there, competence and integrity. Let me just throw this out there while we're here. I mean, we can probably close out accountability because I think that was staple conversation. You might just deliver it. And I just want to give you some of the science of accountability, right? Statistics. I know I'm not normally the statistical guy, but I'm going to give you one. So the American Society of Training and Development, they found that 65% of people are more likely to achieve their goals if they have an accountability partner. I think that's big. 65% are more likely to achieve their goals, right? And 95% of them achieve their goals if they actually check in with their accountability partner regularly. That's huge, y'all. 95%. 65 by just talking with somebody. So if you want to increase your percentile, increase your opportunity, increase your chance, and you believe in the science, find that person, whoever that person is. If you believe in the science, find them. I don't have to believe in the science. Why? Because I've tried it and it works. I believe in my experience. But it's nice to know that the science backs my experience. It's nice to know science backs my experience. And by me and Mike doing this weekly, we have a weekly check-in.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we go over some of the same stuff, but we're at a different level. It's a higher level. So 3 things for you. Find your accountability person, whatever that looks like to you. Find them, whether it's your dad, your mom, whether it's the priest, the preacher, the coach, the consultant, whoever. Mike named a bunch of people, teacher, high level friend or somebody. Find that person, someone who challenges you, I think is what it needs to be, and they support you. And remember those 2 things that he said. They are competent and they have a high level of integrity, right? So find that person or people or group. Like Napoleon Hill said, create a mastermind group, find your gathering, so you can talk with these people freely. And then, schedule your monthly check-in. And if you can't schedule it, then check in weekly or monthly. Do it, make it happen. It doesn't have to be some of those things that has to be like, well, we're going to meet on every 4th Friday of the month. But if it needs to be, then make it that way. If it needs to be, make it that way. You need to understand who you are personally. If you have to have it on your schedule, if it ain't on the calendar, it don't get done. If you're that type of person, then you need to schedule it. Put it on the schedule. Even if you have to adjust the schedule, right? Sometimes Mike and I will put something on the schedule. I think I just did it yesterday, and I had to move something. I had to move it because something else came up. But it doesn't mean that we are not meeting. No, sir. It just means that you need to make an adjustment. That's it. So make sure that you are doing that if that's what it takes for you, and then stay committed. And the last one is use your public commitment strategy. That's a crazy one, I know. But just telling those you love, those that support you, what your intentions are, what you intend to do, will help them to know the direction you're going in so that when you are misaligned, they can help you. It's to your benefit. I'm not saying go out and tell the whole world because the whole world don't care about you. But the people that care about you care about you. It's kind of in it, right? So the people that support you support you. It's there, right? So tell them. Don't hide stuff from people that love you, care about you, and support you. That's the wrong person to hide stuff from. Like I tell my children, if I know about it, I can help you. If I don't know about it, listen. I, I'm not God. I can't read. I can't read what's happening inside your mind. I can't see. I can't see you act or respond a certain way and know. Oh, they're just thinking. I don't know, but I can come really close if you explain to me what you're attempting to do, what your motivation is, and you're working in that thing at the time that I see you. Oh, I might be able to help you. Like a basketball player, my son playing basketball, and he tells me, I'm working on getting my layup. If he tells me something like that, and I go out there and I watch him, and I see he's got a misstep, he's jumping wrong, my son doesn't do that. He's very good. But I'm saying, if I'm looking at it, I can say, oh, okay, he's having trouble with his layup. Why? Because he told me he's having trouble with his layup. He told me that he's practicing it, and I'm watching him do it. So it's easier for me to know that there's a concern there so I can help him. But when I don't know, man, what's wrong with this kid over here? He don't know how to do a layup yet. Oh man, and that's how it happens. So, what'd you say, brother?
I love it. I love it. Hey man, let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. Something that you said earlier at the beginning when you're saying like we didn't when you just mentioned that, it just grabbed onto me, brother. When you said resonated with me when you said we're starting to get together, again, in the last five years is a time frame that you gave versus maybe not as much as the civil rights movement, which is the other time frame that you gave. And if you start to look at what life was like prior to the 50s, we can go. I'm not going to get into Jim Crow racism and all that, so on and so forth. But I can tell you about marriage rates, especially in our community, where the marriage rate was, 90% plus, meaning that, the children weren't living outside of themselves. I can tell you about the amount of productivity that happened during that time frame that the brother mentioned when brother people was getting together. And some kind of way we got disconnected and we got away from that, where the manly thing was, or the narrative that was pushed was for us to do it on our own. You got to do it on your own, or you're soft. Now, don't get me wrong, us as men, like I said, no, especially men, we're not going to want you to complain around us all the time. You know what I mean? But we're going to help you to get back on that horse as quick as possible, because that's what's best for everybody. What's not good is for you to be down and out or depressed, whatever, So pay attention to that. Also, then it goes into, I want to talk about the tone portion that I spoke about earlier. And I heard someone say, and I'm just going to take it as my own at this point. I heard someone say people would rather die by compliments than live by correction. So I think it's important that we kind of, at some point in time, you become okay with yourself to be able to take correction, regardless of how it comes, tone. I mean, we can always work on communication. I do it constantly. How can I say this better? But there's some times when I'm trying to get you away from danger, and it just comes out the way that it comes out. And more importantly, you interpret it in a certain kind of way. So kind of get away from the I'm trying to tell you what to do, and it's just like, hey, I just want this to be better for everybody. But once again, that also comes with integrity, like I mentioned before, and it comes with competence. People want to see that, so that's something that we can keep for ourselves. I see the little one woke up, so
I
I love
love it.
you all.
Yeah, man. We out.
Yeah, we out, man. Love you guys. We'll see you when next week, Valentine's Day. All right, peace.
Your favorite day.
Of the year, I'm gonna get the most rest I ever got for sure. Peace, y'all.